Okay, I'm going to call the work session to order of the Election Commission, and it is 1:31 time-wise, and we have three commissioners that are here. We have only three commissioners on the commission right now. I'm Joyce Anderson, the chair, and I'm Dennis Ironman.
I'm Suzanne Miles.
Okay, and we also have with us
Barbara Jones, municipal clerk.
Nina McGinney, review and resolution team lead.
Amy Solberg, elections coordinator.
Okay, so basically what the work session is for the election commission to get familiar with the ballots that need review by us for the election canvass so that we are prepared for any type of questions that come up when we actually have the canvass at 5:30. So I'm going to turn it over to Barbara, and we're going to go ahead and get started and take a look at this. And this is the first major election. We have canvassed the mock election, which was in December of last year, so we're familiar with that, but this was a little bigger. So we'll take a look at these reports and work question-wise.
Okay, so there are copies of the canvas report that we have created for you.
Just
And
one?
one for each of you.
Okay.
And then Amy will have the extras for the public. And this is a draft. It is for your review.
Okay.
We will go through it, and if you have any changes to make, we will make those changes before your 5:30 meeting tonight, and then we'll go from there.
Because it's my understanding that we're still accepting changes up till 5:30.
That is
I just want to
correct.
make that for the record.
The code is very clear that the public we can receive ballots, and the public can cure up until the beginning of the public session of the canvass. And someone just brought a cure letter to us right now, so we might have some.
Wonderful.
Right. So we'll get started. D is the duplicate ballot voted. We do not have any ballots in the duplicate. Would you get a chair for us? We'll grab a chair, which is what we usually do anyway. So there are no Ds, as you can see, the D1, but we do have some.
Let me interject for a second,
Yes.
Barbara. So some of the codes we're familiar with, and some of them are going to be new that we've dealt with before. So those of us, as commission members, we've dealt with some of the reject codes before.
That is correct. So now D1 is a code that is called duplicate voted void ballot package. So we have used this code. This is a new code. And we use this code when a voter received a replacement ballot package, but the voter voted the original ballot package. All of those voters were notified as soon as we received the original voted ballot package. We notified them. You voted the wrong ballot package. So they got a cure letter. Nina has a sample of a cure letter if you'd like to see it. It said you need to vote the replacement ballot package. Some of those voters called us. We got identifying information from those voters, and they said, I threw the replacement package away because I already voted. And so the voters gave us an instruction that they wanted to vote the replacement ballot package. If it was the correct ballot package, we corrected the ballot package ID, and then we processed that ballot. These ones are voters who actually did vote. We told them you need to vote the replacement ballot package, and they did vote that package. So there's 11 of them. And if you would like to take a look at these envelopes, you can see them. Nina and I have written the reject code D1. Nina's initials are on here and my initials are on here. We both checked. There's also a little notation that said replacement sent, voted and counted, and the date. So that is how you are assured that these voters, these are duplicates, and those voters' other ballot was counted.
And if either of you have questions, let me know.
Okay, the next category is E, ballot return envelope empty. This is an old category. We have used this before. In these cases, there are 3 envelopes. The ballot return envelope was empty. This one, it has something in it, but it's probably an instruction. Yeah, secrecy sleeve or an instruction.
Question. How come some of these have a witness signature and some of them don't?
If somebody filled out See, because this one, Suzanne, you're asking about a witness signature in here? Well, probably because they thought they needed one. You know, it doesn't appear that they needed one for, you know.
I was gonna say, I didn't think it was a requirement, so, okay.
Okay, no, no, no.
Yeah.
It's his, if you need,
Yeah, okay.
if somebody wants to put it down for that.
Okay, the next category, we've created a new category, ballot return without the return envelope. And at the election center, we were unable to identify the voters. So unfortunately, we have a number of those. There's 49 of them. Nina's team kept them separate by the drop box or the accessible vote center because we wanted to see if there was a problem in a different area, if we needed to do different outreach and education. And our conclusion is that it was universal, that some people did not understand that they needed to return the outer envelope. So here is an example of what we received. So there would be
They were dropped in just the ballot?
just the ballot security sleeve,
I see.
ballot, and so these are different days. This is what was returned.
No identifier.
Now, we did our best to figure out, there was actually one that had the instructions, and that it was wrapped around the instructions, and the sticker was used to fold over the instructions. Yes, and on the instructions where it said sign your name, the person signed their name. And we found the voter, and the voter hadn't voted, and we put it in a new envelope and counted it.
Great.
It's amazing.
But for these voters, we couldn't identify them.
So the envelopes are for different days? These envelopes?
No.
They're just,
The envelope is for one location or a ballot source. So Lusac is the biggest, but Lusac was by far the largest Dropbox return.
Yeah.
So
Very
if
simple.
you'd
It's
like
simple.
to,
Very simple, yeah.
you can take a look at, so this would have been one day, and this would have been another day, and then Nina's team just kept them by source.
so maybe we just want, they're not in any order, right? Okay. Maybe just take an envelope, and you can take an envelope and look at it, and we'll just take a look at a couple of them.
Okay.
We know what we're talking about. And what was the final vote? ballots that were received up till,
It was like 79,196.
What was that number again? I'm sorry, Laura.
79,196.
So I'm going to get asked. Okay.
well, the only reason I'm asking is out of 79,196 and 49 came in.
It's-
So
that's not bad.
a relatively small number compared to the large volume that came in, even though they are issues. They are issues.
Correct.
Yeah.
Maybe, Madam Chair, we need to think about putting a sign on the drop boxes next year that says, "Stop, did you sign your envelope? Is it in your return envelope?" I mean, we have that, I mean, it's on the envelope, but I mean, that might be another place where we could catch
That would be a good idea.
Yes.
Definitely.
So may I ask a question? This one that's got a signature on it, is this the one that you were able to trace?
No, we didn't see that. No. Ms. Commissioner, this would be great. This is a great exercise. We can look and see if we can find this voter and if we can count this.
So I think we better look at these.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, here we go.
Thank you,
Good eye, Glennis. Thank you, thank you.
Because it's on the outside, right?
One of these
Okay.
on the instruction sheet.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
No, I just went back to this one because I looked at these, but I didn't look at them as closely as you did.
Now we're all a bit closer.
Do you want us to take a look at it, you two?
Yes, that would be helpful.
Speed things up a bit.
Interesting that you would leave her signature but not put it on the envelope. It's
But you know what?
she didn't sign it.
Even if I did, it's true. So we can argue about that later. Okay. Is that in here? Yeah.
You better put it with none of it.
With the clip. Yeah, it's under the clip. Yep. Okay. Okay. And then there.
Barbara, the signature for that on the ballot?
It can.
It
Did
can
you
be?
know there
Okay,
is?
all right then.
There
I did
is-
look at the other ballots, I did
Yeah,
before I started.
there is a code provision, and the instructions said, there was a provision in the code that said if you put identifying information on your ballot, it's invalidated.
Right, I remember.
But we actually met with the state, and the state doesn't invalidate a ballot for that reason. And one of the comments was, well, so what if somebody puts their initials on the ballot?
It's their
No one
ballot.
else will ever know what that means. And so we decided to follow the state's lead, and that is not invalidatable.
Here's the thing. Okay.
Just an observation. A lot of these didn't even read this stuff, so it's almost obvious that they didn't read the instructions.
I will say this, like, Americans are not notorious for reading instructions.
Oh. I'm an African American.
What can I tell you? You're different. Got another? I know. There's 2 ballots in here. Oh, no. There you go. There.
So before the public session of Canvas, I will change that number to 48. Okay, the next category is voter failed to provide identifying information. So this should look familiar to you. There were 2 voters that voted at an accessible vote center. They did not have identification when they voted.
So even though they provided their last 4 of their social and their Alaska ID card number,
They still have to show identification.
Oh, show.
And you know that identification is very open in Alaska. Identification can be, you know, driver's license, the ID card, you know, it's a hunting or fishing license, you know, it's very broad. And they still did not provide ID. And they were told at the time, because they didn't have ID, that they would have to vote a question ballot.
I always did it. Just this time, I didn't have anything.
I know, I'm not questioning the people at the accessible vote center, but how many people know their driver's license number or their school
I do.
card number?
Mine's got
Really, a lot of people do? I don't.
I don't know mine.
Okay.
I know mine. So those
No, they did not provide license.
So we can take a look at the code here and see what the code says about.
I guess my concern is that, you know, I can see the last 4 of their social, but we need to provide a state ID number and if that's what our statute says, well, then in our code, that's what we have to go by.
So were they really sent to Rita?
I'm sorry?
They weren't sent, were they sent to Rita to say?
No, they were told when they voted that they were voting a question ballot because they did not provide ID.
Okay. And what is CH?
City Hall.
Yeah, well, this was a go there, so I just kind of want to know, I didn't figure out what CH.
early and absentee voting in person. Subject to the provisions of this section, a qualified voter may apply to the municipal clerk or appear before an election official and vote an early or absentee ballot in person in accordance with the procedures of this chapter. That's section A, and then there's a subsection 1. B says, applications shall be made in person. On receipt of an application for an early or absentee ballot and an exhibition of proof of identification as required in 2850.110, the clerk or the election official shall issue the ballot to the applicant. So let's take a look at 2850.110. Voter identification and polling locations. Before being allowed to vote, each voter shall exhibit to an election official one form of identification, including but not limited to an official voter registration card, driver's license, passport, hunting or fishing license, or other identification recognized by the state for its election. An election official shall waive the identification requirement if the election official knows the identity of the voter. A voter who cannot exhibit a satisfactory form of identification shall be allowed to vote a question ballot. Okay. And that will be our 2 Gs. There are no I's. Then we have K. Electronic ballot not properly applied for. So, we have 3 ballots that we received by email. Actually, we have 2. Okay, so we have 2 that there was no application to vote electronically, and a 3rd one, the application was received after the deadline. And the deadline, technically, in the code is March 27th. It's the week before the election. But the code says that as resources allow, we can extend that until the day before the election at 5 o'clock p.m. And we did have staff. We worked long hours, but we did provide those ballots from the 27th until April 2nd. So these ones, there's no application to receive. And I double checked the code on this one, and it does say that an electronic ballot requires an application. A person must apply for an electronic ballot. And I think we understand that because a ballot could be emailed anywhere, and we want to make sure that that ballot is being emailed to the person who applied for it, and that's why you have to apply. You know, we invalidate the original ballot. The ballot that was mailed to you is voided when you apply for this, so that's important.
So how did they actually have a ballot that they emailed if they hadn't received an application, which then he would have sent them a ballot?
The example here says like a wife applied for a ballot, the husband did not. The husband fills out and votes the ballot. Another option could be that a friend applied for an electronic ballot and they just made a copy of it and the other person voted.
Okay. No, it's full of
Very, yes. I was going to say, how would they know what to vote on if they were voting it myself? So that answers, we don't need to see who's that answered that question. Are you okay with that?
Yes.
Yeah, I wondered that myself, so thank you for asking.
No, so on the cure letters, we can probably explain that to you. There are some options some issues that are curable, and some that the letter comes after you make your decision. So I do not know if those folks were sent a notification or not.
I don't know either, and it also depends on when it was received. So if it was received, on election day or something, and we couldn't get a hold of them, there would not be any way for them to cure that because you can't send in the application
After the
back.
fact, yeah.
Is that correct?
That is correct. And then the code says all of the envelopes that the commission rejects will get a notification within 30 days. So that's part of that. We're a little bit premature for notifying some people. It's possible that our electronic voting team, some of our people have gone already, and she has left for this week. So I don't know the answer if she contacted them and said, hey, you didn't submit an application. I don't know the answer to that.
So they will be notified at some point.
Yes.
That's all.
Okay. So on to I've kind of split this one, I'm sorry about that. M is at the bottom of page 1 and the top of page 2. And M is multiple ballots in one envelope. And as it's noted, these voters were notified that there was a problem with this, and they were actually sent replacement ballots, except for one. And you can see the notes on the envelopes are the same. Nina and I both checked them and initialed them. In this, on the sticky note, you can see that we mailed a replacement ballot. This one says it was not voted. This one says it was not voted. This one says it was voted and it was found to be good. This one, there were 3 ballots in this envelope, and this was received on election day, and so there was no way we could notify them that they needed to.
I'm smiling because all 3 signed the envelope.
Right.
Did you see it? But it was arrived after election day. But all 3 signed it.
That's too bad.
Isn't that interesting?
You want to be sure they're voting, huh? And give their telephone number too.
So there's more than one ballot.
It was put in a Dropbox somewhere. It doesn't have a stamp.
2 signatures on this one, 3 on that one. Okay, well. Same household, same last name.
Just in single language.
So you said this one was received on election day. What about these other items? Got it. I see. I didn't catch that.
This was yeah. This is the 19th. Of course, it's another time. What happened? That was early. And there was unidentifiable, so how many people back?
Which one is that? Let me see that one, Susan. This one came in on okay, this one was received on March 22nd.
And then my note there says, can you read my note?
It just, I can't,
Oh,
it's got an ID number on there.
Right.
So you don't know which ballot
this
was
is the replacement ballot package ID, but it was not voted. So a replacement
Okay.
ballot was mailed to this
Yeah.
voter, but it was not voted.
Okay, all right.
Sorry. Yeah.
All right, so basically, there were 3 after election day and one that was sent another one. Okay. And they did not vote.
One of them voted.
Right.
Yeah, one of the 4. And we don't know about the other people that were involved.
No, wait, one of the 4 voted.
Yeah. Not voted. That one, good. That one is voted. This one, we couldn't get a replacement. This one, we mailed replacements, but it was not voted. That person voted. Well, we don't know who the
Yeah, which
second
is who.
person was.
Yeah, you can't tell who done.
But we would like to assume when we notified the person whose envelope it is, that that person notified the other person. I think on this one, on the first one, this is the first one that we got. This was a husband and wife, and we mailed replacement ballots to both of them. Or we just mailed a replacement ballot to 2 people in the household, because we assumed that's what it was.
That was the Gonzalez.
The Gonzalez.
Well, this is the
Oh,
Gonzalez.
okay,
They
that's,
both
yeah.
signed, so we sent to both of them.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. Well, one of them did.
One of them
vote.
did right here, but the other one evidently didn't.
We don't know. I didn't check the other because I didn't have the ballot package ID number.
Okay.
You couldn't tell either one. Yeah.
Okay.
So they both lost. That's too bad.
So there were 4 that had multiple ballots in one envelope.
Correct.
Okay.
The next category is, on mine, is MOA. And so these are voters not registered in the municipality of Anchorage. This category should be very familiar to you. You've seen these before. These people
My
came
favorite.
to the accessible vote centers, and they were not in the database, just like they're not on the register, and so they had to vote a question ballot. And if you want to take a look at these, what happens when it comes back to the election center, this is their registered in precinct. This stands for no count. My initials. The reject code is MOA because they're not registered in the municipality. And then Nina double checked it. This note right over here shows that they were registered in Fairbanks. And so if you want to look through these, you can see this one says Seward. So remember that the swapping comes off and goes to the state of Alaska, and it updates their registration from Fairbanks to Anchorage. And so yes, in the primary they should be valid. In addition, besides the questions, there are a handful of others. This one was 2 special needs ballots. These voters called, they didn't get a ballot. They asked for a replacement ballot. It was like it was very close to election day. It was 3:30. So the voter met the qualification for a special needs ballot, so we prepared special needs ballots for the voters. Our records show that the voters were registered in Wasilla. The voters said they had updated their registration to Anchorage. We worked with the state. We tried to find out when they updated their registration. We could not find any updated registration. So even though we prepared and delivered these special needs ballots, the state's records do not show that they're registered in Anchorage. So those are in this group as well. And then there's a handful, and these ones, these voters, were these voters at the accessible vote centers? Yes. So these 4 voters went to accessible vote centers, but they didn't get put in question envelopes. So that was just, the accessible vote centers have a lot to do. You know, they had to issue the ballot package and issue the question ballot. But what happened was they put the voter name on it. They correctly put the ballot style number on it. But when it got over here, we couldn't find the voter in our database, and then we checked the state's database, and they were just registered elsewhere. They were not registered. This one, we got a note that said he was registered in Sterling. So that's why these look a little different. And then this one, we have a copy of this one. We have this voter actually voted in our election, but then sure this date is. Let me read that thing. It went through twice. Like 3/22. So it's what it looks like. You can take a look at that one. But she changed her registration to tell Pete on March 7th. So we don't think she's eligible to vote in the March 7th. She wouldn't have been eligible. So anyway, there is all of those for you.
Okay. So how did you find out that she registered and called Commision on that?
Well, we needed a signature. We needed a reference signature for
Got
her.
it. That makes
And
sense.
so we contacted the state to find, the state helped us a great deal finding reference signatures. And when the state provided that, she basically changed her registration.
That makes sense. I wasn't thinking that way.
Yeah. Well, it does look interesting. It took us a while to think some of those.
I mean, it's
through.
like, I bet.
These were the two special needs ones that were not registered here, even though they said they updated their registration. And those will go over to the state too, so they can update the ones as well as the yellow ones over there.
Did you see we signed a representative, Karen Walker?
She's one of our employees. Yes, we sent her, she did a lot of our special needs, and the League of Women Voters also did some special needs, so we had, how many special needs?
They're supposed to be added.
20? Yeah, probably about 20 special needs.
Is there a time requirement on here somewhere?
No, it's outside.
Just that they think on our roster, we have to, when we bring elections, this is spot where you say the time, you say put it in.
The time that they brought it into the,
Yeah, but it's not on. That's a shame.
I don't know if you just want to look at one of them. I know that I'm very familiar with them
Yeah.
from working down here.
Yeah. This is my task of preference when I do elections.
Pardon?
This is my task of preference when I do elections.
Oh, yeah. And I like the fact that, and I think that's important to bring up, is that all of these people will be registered for the next election.
Yeah.
at their address.
That's right.
Allows we need to send that top piece over even on the special needs ones and send them over.
Can you please speak louder and have a real hard public?
Okay.
Thank you.
So our next one is category O, voter doesn't meet certification requirements. This is a code that you should be familiar with. This voter was not old enough to vote in this election.
Well, I give them credit for trying.
Yeah, there you go. Eager bigger. And I hope they receive a letter of saying that.
Okay.
The voter was registered, which is good. You register 90 days before your 18th
Exactly.
birthday. but-
Exactly.
That's not much of a signature.
That's encouraging.
Yeah. Budding feminist. Go for it.
Probably because the person registered within 90 days how they can vote.
Yeah.
I can understand where that would be. It's not an issue that we need to address, but I understand it.
The next category is a new category. It's called R. Voter returned the ballot envelope and asked to be removed from the voter rolls. So these ran through the system because, this is, it just looked like mail to us. But in our opening team, which is Bonnie and Jean is the team lead for the ballot opening, we found something in the ballot envelope that led us to believe that the voter did not wish to continue their registration. There are 14 of those, and you can take a look at them.
I have a question on that.
Yes?
Did you contact, was the voter then contacted you, sure that was their intent?
She wanted to know because if you look at these, you'll see it's very clear.
Okay.
That they did
Well, I
not
haven't
want
looked
to-
at them yet, so-
Yeah, but take a look at them.
Okay.
Here, let me pass a couple down. Take a look at them and
Okay.
Oh,
well. Yeah.
We've sealed them back up.
Oh.
You can open them,
Well-
Glennis.
I'm just curious. As to what's in there?
Well, this one, it's pretty evident to me, although this is interesting. I see 2 return addresses that are out of state, and that's, evident as to why they want to be removed. But this one is from in-state, and I'm kind of wondering why they don't want to be on anymore. So let me see, can I find out? In advice.
So this one says, please remove me from the voter rolls. Currently Montana resident. Well, that's very
Oh,
obvious.
well, this is sealed up.
Which
I
is
don't
very
feel
nice.
comfortable
Put
opening
that on there.
Joyce,
What?
well, this one's sealed up. I don't really want to open it. Oh, okay.
Yes, you're welcome.
This one says, I live in Arizona now. Take my name off your list. Thanks.
What?
Well, a lot of times when you fill out a registration card in another state, you don't put your previous address down, and then we're not notified. The state, by we, the state is not notified to remove that.
Yeah.
The state often doesn't do it. Well, so the state has to receive a notice either from another state or from the voter to get them on the roll. So that's,
And we're copying all
I did.
these and sending
Did you
to
see the notes?
yes,
Yes.
yes. And you heard that these are all going to the state, so they will be taken off.
Okay.
This one says, I am 80 years old and have never voted in my life. Oh, please take me off your register.
Well, how'd you get on in the first place?
Well, she must have registered at some time.
That's what I'm saying.
She's 80 years old. She probably registered back when.
He doesn't remember. Okay.
I moved out of state. Please remove me from the voter rolls. Thank you.
This is from Roseburg,
Another one.
Oregon, so I'm questioning that. Oregon. This is from Colorado. Okay.
Commissioners, can I remind you that the recording is on and that if you speak, you need to speak loud enough for the recording to pick you up, but also be sure to not speak over each other so that we just pick up everybody on the recording.
Okay, so most of these are saying that they want to be removed, which is something I would have never thought about when we sent out ballots. Did you want to see any more of them? Or? No? Okay.
Perhaps that should have been noted on that card that was sent initially. That first postcard that was sent, saying to look for that in the mail. They could have responded after that.
Oh, the cards that went out?
I believe that the card said, update your voter registration with the state of Alaska voter registration. And you could have contacted your state at that time to cancel your registration.
Yeah, that's sort of what I'm making.
Okay. So 14 will be removed from the rolls.
I wanted to make sure I stopped at 14. Okay, the next category. These are Ts. This is a code that you've used before. These voters registered too late. Remember, the cutoff for our election is 30 days before the election. It's March 4th. And you can see, Nina, these voters had to vote a question ballot because they also were not in the voter registration database, and when we checked them here, they were registered after March 4th. I don't think there's any
questions? Nope.
I know vote next time, though.
Yes. They will be sent a card from the state, staying in the registry.
Our next category is ballot received too late. So there are two different types of ballots that could be received too late. That would be ballots that were received at an accessible vote center or a drop box after 8 p.m., which is what all of these are. Or if we receive a ballot that's postmarked on or before Election Day, but after your public session of canvass starts today, those ones also are too late. But these ones are just all received at a drop box or an accessible vote center. You can see our election workers who were at those locations made the notations on the envelopes.
Okay, one question, since we're talking about mail, does the mail been picked up for today?
We picked up mail at 8 a.m. and at 11 a.m. and we have someone that's picking up mail again at 4 o'clock p.m.
Okay, all right.
And we also picked up mail at the clerk's office this morning too.
Okay. Then how do we know that this one came in at 10:15? I mean, I can understand the 8:01 or the 8:10, there's somebody at the drop box, but
They took that long when they were doing their accountability at the end of the night. Some people worked really late.
Okay.
That was election night.
right, it
Oh,
was, yes.
this one, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I should have made this a little bit clearer. This one is go by email, so this
Oh,
was
I
an
see that
email.
on there.
So it was an electronic
these are
one and it was
appropriate.
received at 10:15.
Didn't see the email on
Yep.
there, and I'm thinking
Yep.
it was, couldn't figure out how somebody would be there at 8:10,
Yeah.
or at 10:15.
They
Who
were,
has-
yeah.
Pardon?
They didn't
We
get
do-
here till
we do-
midnight.
yeah, right, and I-
They were.
Okay.
We do have a question. 801.
The polls close at 8.
You gotta talk louder.
understand.
Yes. And I understand that, it's been very strict, 8 o'clock.
I'm strict with my precinct.
Yeah, I know.
But I think we all have to.
Okay, do you think that maybe this ballot received too late, we should add
Yes.
on there than email?
Yes.
Because that's why I was thinking it was a Dropbox, because I
Yes.
didn't see a postmark on it. So maybe we could put number 3 on here.
And it'll be, how about if we do in number 1, ballot is received after 8 p.m. on election day via email or fax or at one of the accessible vote
Okay.
centers or drop boxes.
Okay, I think that's clear.
You could simply have them marked as received late, but there's no time on the envelope or anything. Then
We always put the time on the envelope because I think we think it's
Where is
more.
it?
This one doesn't have
Doesn't have time.
Right.
The paper said,
It says the ballot, it says, it came from what? From
Service.
Service.
We've asked our workers to put the time on them.
Okay.
This one was,
Yeah.
This one wasn't, okay. Okay, so we're gonna make that change for B in
Yes.
there, so it could be by fax or by email. Makes sense as well.
well, that covers it.
Right.
And the next one, okay. So this is probably our biggest category. We have 282. And that's the right number, Nina, 282?
yes.
Okay. Or,
No, I think it was 294.
yeah, 294. I think that number is a little bit higher. It should be 294.
294?
Right.
Okay.
And we can double count those before the public session of canvass. So all of these envelopes are postmarked after Election Day. And You're going to see in the next two categories, W1 and W2, that we went through all of these envelopes looking for any identifying information. So if you see there's all kinds of post office barcodes. Sometimes the barcode goes across here, sometimes it's pink, sometimes it's on the back. We went through all of them looking for any other information. And we took all those to the post office and tried to get some of those to count if the post office could provide, because the code says, and the post office could not verify receipts. Anyway, these ones we could not count because we believe that they are all postmarked after election day.
Well, it's very clear there's a postmark on it.
That is correct.
Which would make it, what, where is it?
Oh, gosh.
Okay, so these are all postmarked after November, later.
Oh,
than
here it is. This is April 5th. Okay.
November.
Never mind.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. These are people that probably put them in the box too late.
These were all mailed.
Oh, but they mailed them too late.
Well,
Yes.
yes, because they're postmarked
Yeah, got it.
on the 6th, mine are the 6th.
Gosh, this is a 12.
Yeah, because some are the 4th, some are the 6th. Yeah.
The drop boxes were locked at 8 o'clock p.m. on election day, so none of these were in our drop boxes.
Do you want to look at all of them?
You're required to.
You want to look at all?
Sure.
I just give you the, okay.
Yeah, you got those.
Okay.
So you can put the, we'll empty it here, Joyce, and put the empty down there. and then you can-
Great.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Wow. Well, this is pretty hard to read.
Okay. Do you have a question?
Yeah, can you read that?
That one is difficult to read.
Never. It's like a bunch of dots.
I am not sure that they don't have it.
Okay.
Are these in stacks of 25?
20.
Okay.
So Suzanne took it out of
That
hers.
was not,
We'll
this
go
is
back.
19 then. Do you want to put this back on it, only put it another angle or something?
Yeah, maybe Amy can take that.
That one will be, yeah, okay. I'm going to pass that one down for the end down there because I looked at
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
They marked April the 4th, and I'm wondering if they popped them into the box, thinking that they popped them in on the 3rd, that they would be postmarked on the 3rd. But I know that they were supposed to take them to the post office, at the outlet stage, there was an actual postmark on them. Is that correct?
The instructions did say, if you mail on election day, be sure to ask postal officials to hand cancel
Yeah.
the envelope.
Is there good? These are good too.
Well, here's an prior seed with the receipt.
Oh. Well, that was on the, oh, okay, thanks. Oh, sorry. Now I can what are these? See where these Let's see. Yeah. Wow. that the one I had trouble with before?
Yeah.
It's still pretty iffy.
I can't tell.
It's nothing but a bunch of pixels as far as I can tell. So it looks like to me. I can't identify the number on this, can
Would you
you?
like, I can see if I can see something better.
You've been looking at them a long time. So
Yeah.
if you could point out to me, I honestly cannot make that one out.
I believe it's for April 2018, but somebody else wants.
Okay, let me take a look at it.
If you find another one that has 4 April 2018, it might.
Yeah, I have a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, so it might.
You need a super concentrator.
Oh, I can see where you're saying that. I can see that on there.
All right.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, we'll put that back in with the one that was missing one. That was a good suggestion to take a look at.
Yeah.
Amy? Oh. Boy. Oh, that's too bad. Another batch?
Well, definitely a lot of them are for 4.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm just wondering if there's some way that we could reiterate to them that it has to be postmarked and not just put in a box. I mean, our language maybe should change somewhere.
So one of the suggestions that we had, with Carolyn's help, we had the innovation team review the envelope, the mock election envelope. So this looks different than the mock election envelope that you got. And we took all of their comments to heart and I think implemented every single change they suggested, except one. And they wanted us to put on the envelope, must be postmarked by April 3rd on the envelope. But we declined to do that because we have thousands of envelopes left over that we can now use next year. Otherwise, you have that risk of the envelopes are only good for 1 year.
Is there a way that you could mechanically, just put them through some sort of a device or a stamp? You could have that put on there?
We could look into that. We have variable data that's sprayed onto the inner envelope. That's the name and address. And I could certainly ask our printing vendor if it was possible that we could have something sprayed on the outside that's had the return date.
I do understand the cost-saving mechanism, and I advocate for that. There has to be some way to do this. I mean, there were a couple hundred, I thought.
Oh, close to 300.
Yeah,
No,
294.
Yeah.
That was David done before.
Right, oh, yes, definitely. Also on the instruction sheet, is it possible to maybe highlight that in yellow?
Yes.
That that's a real
Well,
easy
that
fix.
must be easy.
Yeah, that's a real easy fix. to make.
Yeah.
To highlight the instruction sheet in yellow, which then sort of stands out a little bit more than the rest of the sheet.
That's a good,
Or have it printed in red and highlighted in yellow. You know what I mean? Some sort of a visual that catches your eye more so than.
it's really sad that they couldn't be, but they didn't think they put it in the box on the third.
Right.
They weren't supposed to.
So, yeah, that to me is more of an easy fix to make it sort of, or put it in a box, or, you know, Carolyn would have some good ideas, I'm sure. on how to do that. Yes, I mean, usually if something's in a box and it's highlighted in red, or you look at it more so than the rest of the instructions.
Okay, so the next category, and please see that we have 2 additional postmark categories. The next one is no postmark, but received after Election Day. The code actually includes this language that the USPS could not verify receipt of the envelope on or before Election Day. So we're going to show you, I'm just going to give you a little preview of W-2s. And the W-2s have additional information from the post office that indicates some type of receipt. However, on these envelopes, we took these all to the post office, and there was nothing on these envelopes that the post office could determine when it was processed through their system. So these ones are all proposed to be rejected because there is no postmark and they were received after election
They
day.
were all received after.
Yes.
Do we know what day they were received to after?
Did you know what? I don't think that we marked them, and part of the reason we didn't mark them is we didn't want to obscure any of the information you're going to see on the next ones. Some of the post office information is pretty important and it's hard to read. So we did not mark that, but it was after Election Day.
And how do we know these 3 came in and didn't have stamps on from the post office? That's where they came from?
Yes.
They did. Okay. Well, my suggestion would be, and why I was asking that question is that, and it's not going to make any difference either because sometimes mail gets stuck in mail, you know, in a box or whatever. But it reminds me of when the code was changed to allow voters' ballots to be accepted when they filled out a challenge ballot at the precinct, but the election official did not sign. It really wasn't the voters' fault that the official didn't sign, so why should their ballot be rejected? Well, that's kind of the way I look at the post office is, you know, the voter didn't, you know, the voter, it's the post office that made the mistake, not the voter, because the voter turned it in. And I realized that, I'm just making my opinion, and I realized that it kind of looks like the same way to me. I mean, it wasn't the voter's fault that there's no postmark on it. So that's why I thought maybe it might be to know when they came in. I mean, if they came in today, I'm going to say probably not. So give me a little bit more information.
Right. So, Madam Chair, what we can do is in the future, we'll put a receipt stamp on the back. There sometimes is data on the back of the envelopes. In fact, you're going to see one in the next batch that may have a date on the back. But that would be a place where we can mark on the back that wouldn't obscure any other data on here that might be identifying. So we'll do that in the future.
Okay. And I think that's really only important for the ones that don't have a postmark. I mean, I don't feel I need to do that on all of them. But, so I will pass these down, but that's my comment. So my question then is it code-wise that they need to be rejected, or is it something the election commission can discuss?
Well, you can look at the code, and I think it's up to the election commission.
Okay.
But I can read see what the code says about that.
All right.
Odd. And this is another postage to do. What? They have.
One of those
Yeah, they've got from a home post box, postal thing. Some people can do their own mail.
Yeah. But still, it would have had to go through the post office.
Yes. What's this thing? Doesn't look like one I recognize. I think another one of those home things. I bet you.
It's like a Christmas weekend. This, this over here.
Well, and again, there's no receipt date on any of these, so we don't know. Show this one to Joyce. This is weird.
Which one?
It's odd. We have to speak up.
Okay, so you're saying because of this,
We're not sure what
what we're
happened
saying,
with that.
Barbara, is that the question by two of the commissioners is that because his address is obscured here, it looks like it was sent back to the Senate. Is that possible, or did we put that arrow on?
We do not know. We took this to the post office, and the post office had no information about this item.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
But they're
It
going,
just looks odd. That's all.
Right.
but the post office did not give us any reason why these weren't stamped.
No, they did not.
Okay.
No reason.
Well, we're gonna check the code, we'll check the code before the actual canvas at 5:30 to see exactly what it says, so we'll have an answer.
Yeah.
So we can do that.
So where the code is talking about envelopes,
Where are you at, Barbara?
I'm at 2870.030. This is talking about ballot review standards.
I see that.
Okay, and it talks about a vote by mail ballot shall be counted. And then in C3A it says, the ballot return envelope is postmarked no later than the day of election, or the USPS can verify receipt of the envelope on or before election day and receipt not later than the opening of the public canvass. It says that postage that includes a date, such as a meter postage or a dated stamp, does not qualify as a postmark if an envelope lacks a postmark or if the postmark is unreadable. The date to which the voter has attested determines the validity of the ballot, but there is no date.
Barbara, can I have your reference number again where you were? I'm sorry.
This is new code.
Yep.
It's 2870.030
Okay.
C3.
This is the map of the compass. Right, okay. Thank you, I have it. Yeah, here.
Do you want me to take this?
Oh, yeah.
Page 30.
Yeah. Page numbers, in towards the center.
The code is talking talking about that it shall be counted, and then I think we're inferring the elections team is telling you, we're not authorized to count this, because the code says we shall count it under these circumstances,
Okay.
which we do not believe are present here. So, it doesn't say you shall not count it, but it does say we can count it.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
Okay, so shall we put these ones back?
Yes.
So the last category this is W-2. There's an unclear postmark or no postmark, but the post office provided additional information. And so what you're going to be looking at here is this is an envelope just like the last category that had no postmark on it. But the post office provided this information on the back side. And this one showed that the post office had this envelope at the Anchorage post office, at the airport post office on Thursday, April 5th. So that is information on that one. A more interesting one might be this one, that the Anchorage post office had this one on Thursday, April 5th, but it's from Hawaii. And a few others, this one is from Hawaii, but the post office had it in Anchorage on the 4th.
Barbara, can I ask you something? Do you credit the originated post office, or it has to be received here in Anchorage by
It has to be
RV?
postmarked by.
No, it could have been
It
posted.
doesn't have to be received, it has to be postmarked.
So it came from Hawaii before, if it's postmarked before election day, it's still valid, yes?
It could be, that's what we're gonna talk about.
Okay, thank you.
It has no postmark.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but the post office has provided information that the Anchorage post office had it on April 4th. Okay. This one is from Alexandria, actually it's probably farther than Alexandria, Virginia, because it has an APO.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it was received on Wednesday, April 11th. So we didn't make any decisions on any of these. We decided that you would make all of these decisions. This one, again, is April 11th. Oberlin, Ohio. This one is an APO with April 4th, and it says this one, it's from Owings, Maryland, but it was received in Anchorage on April 4th. This is an Anchorage one that was received in Anchorage on April 4th. Elton, Maryland, received in Anchorage on April 4th. A Hawaii one that was received in Anchorage on the 5th. British Columbia, received in Anchorage on the 4th. Those are those here.
So let me just talk for a few minutes. So what the clerk's office has done is taken all those without postmarks and gone to the post office to see if they had any additional information. The first ones we looked at, they did not have any additional information. But there was no postmark on them. We don't know what day they came in here. These, the post office had additional information. And most of them, I noticed, I think there was one from Anchorage, but most of them were tallied in here at our post office, but were mailed, except for maybe that one, there might have been two, I know there's one for sure, that were tallied, or tallied here, recorded here. But because they came from someplace else, in order for them to get here on the 4th, they certainly had to be sent from someplace else that didn't get a postmark, let's say from British Columbia or Hawaii or whatever it has to be. So that's what the election commission needs to look at when we meet at 5:30 for our canvas. So, I think what we need to do is, I see you've highlighted it, Barbara, that's good, so we don't have to read anything else. I know what's highlighted. So I think that we can take a look at these, and then, again, we can't make any decisions right now because this is a work session, but we can go through and ask questions like we're doing. And so I'll pass a couple of these down for you to look at, and then we'll have to go and look at them again at the canvas and make a decision. And as you can see, where they're coming from is where they were mailed to. So if they were mailed there, 99.9% of the time, that's where they're going to be sent from. So it's our decision to determine if they're on time. And so let's just use an example of one to work this through, and then we can use that example. So whatever you have in front of you, this one came in on the 5th, but this one came from Honolulu. So and since we can't make decisions, but I can offer, thought process recommendations so that if it was mailed in Honolulu, it certainly was mailed by the 3rd to get here on the 5th, because it's going to probably take more than 2 days to get here.
I have a question. There's something highlighted here that says the timestamp. That's the timestamp that we received here?
Yes,
Okay.
here in Anchorage.
Okay.
So in other words, we're going to look at these and we're going to see where they're from and what day they came in, and then it would be us as the election commission to make the determination whether this ballot should be.
That seems fair. Yeah.
So basically that's what we're going to be doing. This one was also from Hawaii, like Barbara said, and this is an APO. Well, if it's an APO, it's going to be coming from somewhere.
This one came from DC and it was on the 5th. That's quite
So there's some thought process that we need to go through. This is an APO that came in on the 4th, and we certainly know that one was mailed or postmarked. Would have been postmarked if there was on there on the 3rd. This one is another APO, but it came in on the 11th. So that's something that that we would need to discuss.
Does it say which APO it is?
No, it just says APO. So to me, that could mean anywhere.
Yeah.
I don't quite understand the APO process. All
Well, I do.
know
I
is
was in
that
the military, so they could be from Japan
Yeah.
or Germany or.
it could be anywhere. Right. So that's something we need to think about. That's came in on the 11th. This one's from Missouri and came in on the 4th. What Barbara was saying. This is an Anchorage one. I know there was one. This is an Anchorage one that got here on the 4th. So if it was received here, I hate the word got. Why did I say that? No. If it was received here on the 4th, well then we know it had to be postmarked. At least we can think that. So we'll talk about that at the canvas. But to get here on the 4th,
It had to be postmarked on the 3rd.
Actually, let me make sure that we understand that. So it was handled at the Anchorage Post Office on the 4th.
okay.
So it could have been mailed at the Anchorage Post Office on the 4th.
Okay.
It could have been mailed from Chubiakibo River on the 3rd,
Exactly.
or from Girdwood on the 3rd. But I think
It should be in that.
And that's another discussion one, just like the one from the 11th.
Yeah, I know.
This one's from Maryland. Received at our post office here on the 4th. This is another Hawaiian one. Came in on the 5th. So basically, that will be our discussion later as to, and I'm sure there might be some questions. This one is from Canada. That also, this one came in. This one was received here on the 12th. So that's something we need to discuss.
Yeah.
Just so we know. So Barbara, the date on there means that was the day that our post office reported it in their hands. Is that what I'm understanding?
that is correct. That is the day that the Anchorage Airport Post Office handled it.
Okay. All right.
And we have one you're checking on?
Yeah, I had a recollection that this one was, the query we have attached to it shows April 11th, but I was thinking when I looked at it before that it was before that. So we're just going to keep checking that one, or we'll
Okay.
ask the PO if they can help us with that.
So there's possibly 10 or 11.
Okay. There are 11. You just looked at 10.
Right, okay, okay, all right, okay.
And we'll keep looking at it if you can't tell. Okay.
Okay. Okay, we are now on X.
So our X category, again, these you should be familiar with. These are voters who showed up at our accessible vote centers. They were not in the register because they are not registered. Again, they were required to vote a question ballot. The floppy will be given to the state. It will register them. You can see we followed the same procedure. We've marked an X. That's the category. I've initialed it, and Nina has initialed it.
So this category is different than the other ones we've seen because they're not registered in the state at all, where the other category was they were registered
But
in
this will
another.
pick them up.
Right, but they were
Yeah.
registered
Right.
somewhere else
Right.
within the state. These are not registered at all.
Okay. This one has no identifier at all on it. What are we going to do with that?
That's okay because they're not registered anywhere.
Yeah, but it won't pick them up, will it?
Well, that would be the state's call to see if they're, you mean for registering them to vote? Yeah, that's going to be the state's call on that.
Okay. That's good.
I did not either, but I haven't been counting. So I look at the count.
So the next category is a new category. We're calling it X1. Voter was registered, but may have looked wrong. And we could not tell what the voter intent was in these cases. We were initially received on about March 20th. We processed them and we sent the voter cure letters for various reasons. We needed signature information, most likely. And then when we got signature information from the state, it included a request to cancel the voter registration. But we thought that the information was conflicting, Because if someone wanted to cancel their voter registration on March 1st, we don't understand why they would have voted on March 20th. So we thought that we would let you make that decision.
Okay, I'm still a little confused, so I'm gonna ask a couple of questions. So the code is that the voter may have withdrawn their voter registration.
Correct.
And that was a form that they received. Please cancel my vote. Okay, I've never seen one before, so that's what I'm asking. Okay, I'll pass that to the two of you. You can look at that. I've never seen one before where you can, okay. And this is the ones that were sent out by the meeting earlier.
No, I
These are
believe
sent
that
out by
was
the
sent-
states?
That was very much like the form that you made a photocopy of
Okay,
today. That's from the state of Alaska.
okay.
Barbara, could this have been done by somebody who possibly was moving and decided they needed to cancel? For some reason?
Exactly. We don't know, but I mean, there's a lot of reasons. So this was, well, let me talk about this one so we can, this one.
Well, then I want to talk about
This one was received by the Division of Elections on March 5th. And like Barbara is saying, why would this person then, vote? This was postmarked March 19th. I'm not a signature person, but because it's such a unique signature, it definitely looks like the same one. And that was on March 1st. They received it on March 5th, and this person voted, well, the ballot was postmarked on March 19th. No, it's not, because they have to determine whether we have to determine whether this is someone that should be counted, this ballot should be counted or not. Well, that's a thought, but we can't open it to determine that until we determine if it should be counted or not. So, so these are ones that are these routinely sent out by the state? 'Cause
I don't know.
I don't know either, because I've never received one. So.
I've never seen that.
Don't do anything to do with it. Just have somebody comment.
Okay, so there's this one. Let's look at that one.
Well, these are not, these are immigrants or they look like an Oriental family. And it may be that they misunderstood.
These are both from the same address.
Okay,
So they're both from the same address.
What?
They're both saying to cancel my registration. Again, I'm not a signature expert, but they're pretty unique signatures. They look the same. It's possible they're not citizens and realized it and sent that in. I don't know.
I don't think that's possible, Madam Chair, because they couldn't be registered.
No, it's possible they may be registered, but they shouldn't be registered because they were not citizens. I mean, I don't know.
Then why would they have voted?
True. It's true. I don't know.
Right.
Okay, I don't know. That's something we'll have to discuss.
In addition, the voter declaration also on the envelope, so the voter declaration is on the flap, and it does
Right.
say, I'm a citizen of the state of the U.S. and a resident of the municipality. It's conflicting.
It's conflicting is what it is. I mean,
So the conflict is this form, and the interesting thing is, on the form, this is the address. It says maintain it with this address. So the address is the same. So it's almost as if they filled out both sections of the form instead of just one section. They didn't need to fill this section out if they wanted to. May I ask that we be cautious about the tape, the recording? So that is the conflict that you're looking for is you have the same address, and this didn't need to be filled out, and then they voted. So I think you've got an odd combination.
Yes, very.
And Nina, you've worked for the state. How does the state issue those voter registration numbers?
Well, they do verify that they are residents and they are citizens of the United States before they issue them a voter registration.
I was not aware of that.
Okay, moving on. We're now at code XX, which you are probably familiar with. The MOA elections received information within the ballot envelope that was returned that this voter was deceased, and there's confirmation of that attached.
There is a note inside.
That is the note.
Yeah.
Yeah, they made a copy of it.
Oh, okay. Well, no, there is a note inside of there also. But we
Oh,
did
other
not-
than this one? Oh, I thought this was a copy of the note. Okay.
So some of these were processed, and then we opened the envelope on our envelope opening team, discovered information, and then we pulled the envelope back.
And as you can see, the date of the deceased is March 3rd. So it's very close to.
Was this, when was this date? The first, so it's already gone.
Right, they're sending it back with the note.
It's an unvoted ballot, though,
Is
right?
it- We don't
We
know
don't
that.
know.
We don't know that. Was it an unvoted ballot? I don't think it makes any difference. They sent a note back stating that the
Okay.
person was deceased because they were deceased on March 3rd, which is very close to when all of this was going on, which probably got crossed in the information you received from the state. Am I looking at that correctly? Right. So, so they're sending it back.
So
with
I
the
think
note.
Joyce is right. The timeline would be that we got the data from the state on March 1st. We mailed the ballots on March 13th, and this was received on March 21st.
It's already passed on the third.
Right.
So there's no way it could be voted.
Yep. Yep. So they're sending that back.
Yeah.
The next category, inadequate witnessing. The code says that by mail and fax back ballots must be witnessed by one person over the age of 18. And this one, there was no voter declaration in it. And we think that's important because voting by email and requesting an email ballot to be somewhere, we think that's important to have the voter declaration. You're going to have other by mail ballots that don't have a voter declaration signed as well.
Okay, could you give a quick explanation of voting by email? Because when they vote by email, didn't I hear earlier that they have to have an application to vote by email?
That
Doesn't
is
that
correct.
require a signature?
Yes, it does.
So, but
what?
not a witness? Voting by email requires a witness?
It does.
Okay, that's why I was trying to understand the process. Okay, that's what I didn't know. I've never. Okay, so that makes sense. So there's no voter declaration with the witness. That's why I was wondering why you said witness, because I thought, okay. So they apply for an email ballot and sign on it, but when it comes back, there has to be a witness because it's an email ballot. Okay.
So we have a permutation on no witnessing with an email ballot. This is category Y1. The code says that it must be witnessed by someone over 18 and a U.S. citizen. These two voters notified us that they could not find a U.S. citizen to witness their ballot, and they returned it to us and told us that. And so there's those two.
they certainly weren't, they weren't at the same location. Okay, because if they were, they could have had each other sign. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm understanding this. Okay, so we've got two that they couldn't find a citizen to sign. I was just making sure they weren't together and all of a sudden didn't realize each other could sign. Okay. All right, so they couldn't find a U.S. citizen to sign.
Oh, they didn't.
Well, I'm assuming they're overseas, so, okay.
Okay, now.
Now that, is that a state requirement or a muni requirement?
It's in the muni code.
Muni?
Yeah.
Is there another option for someone who can't find a U.S. citizen? Such as a notary or a, see what I'm saying? Some other option that somebody might be overseas without, you know, by themselves without having a citizen around it.
It is not that is not currently in the code. I think on the old absentee ballots, remember it had certain types of official signature sign or
like a
witness.
postmaster, a notary, a senior leader on some buildings.
There is nothing, no provision like that in the
Well, I'm wondering if that's something that should be looked at. I mean, to me, it's important that they took the effort to apply for it. They took the effort to fill out the paperwork that they needed to apply. I guess I should put it that way first. And that they took the effort, you know, to try to vote and then couldn't find someone. So I realize that maybe that is an issue, and I'm thinking that there should be an alternative like there was before.
Madam Chair, I would also add that these voters, different than the previous category, did sign the voter declaration. In addition to the items that you said.
Okay.
Okay. The next category, we kind of alluded to this category as far as the some of the other ballots. These voters failed to sign the outside of the ballot return envelope. That is the voter certificate. And so there's 65 of these. So take a look.
Yes?
This is another
Speak
instance
up a little bit.
This is another instance where, even though it's in italics, can you possibly put a highlight up here? Because obviously, if 65 people miss it, then
Yeah, that's something.
that's
we can-
more than an incidental.
65 out of 79.
Well, I understand that. I understand that.
So I think there are people who didn't want their signature on the outside, so they didn't sign. And these are people, voters we sent opportunity to cure letters to, and several of them have come back with their signature inside of an envelope. These people all received opportunity to cure letters, and we haven't received them back.
Did they also receive a phone call?
They received a phone call or an email if we had that information.
I do remember that discussion. That one person was particularly vehement about not putting the signature on the front of the envelope, thinking that it violated their privacy.
We offered people lots of opportunities. You could sign an X and have it witnessed. You could go to an accessible vote center and sign an X and have one of our workers sign on the envelope. So there were options for people who didn't want to have their signature on the outside of the envelope.
Why would you separate that, you know?
Okay, so, pardon? What was that?
Oh, I asked why those were separated out. They were, I didn't even remember it, the 20.
Yes, right.
Okay.
So,
Sorry.
so we can see that these did not have signatures on them.
Yep.
I guess as you're looking through them, why don't you note how many have postage stamps on them and how many do not? That's sort of something I'm looking at.
There's one that has 2 witnesses, but
Yeah, I have one that has witnesses as well,
But no
so
signature. Okay.
they still have to sign.
if you are unable to sign your name, you must mark the signature line and have another person over the age of 18
Right.
properly witness. And
You have
that's
to
what they
mark
did.
it.
Yes,
There's no mark.
right, that's what we're
Right.
saying, that's what
Right.
she's reading,
Okay.
yeah, she's agreeing. Just pointing, let's just point that
Right.
out. so.
Yeah, things are on.
Next.
Does this mean this person received a second ballot because he's got a different stamp on it?
No, that would have been voted at an accessible vote center.
You know, they clearly, they have the return name and everything.
Right, there's, yeah, a lot of them didn't, but I can see that some did.
Yeah, that's really odd.
I mean, it's very controversial.
We also had some questions about mailing the ballots, and we allowed people to put, if you wanted to mail a ballot, you could mail it in a manila envelope with your signature on it, and then have a separate envelope, so that the signature wouldn't be visible. So there were options for people who didn't want their signature, and as Nina said, they were all contacted. And this is an example of the form that was provided to people. So the form could have come back and didn't need to be, if it was in a letter, you can fax it or email it or bring it in to get this back, and it wouldn't have been visible outside of the envelope.
Yeah, I was just curious, because it seems to me that quite a few of them did not have stamps on mine.
I
Yeah.
had 6 on that
Were
stamped.
stamped? Yeah, most of them seem to be without stamp. That were dropped
they were
off at a
dropped in
drop
the
off.
Dropbox.
Yeah, Dropbox,
That-
probably. We don't know, but I would say probably. What do you say?
Well, they could have been mailed. They,
Well, no, they didn't have stamps. What I'm saying is they're obvious at the moment. They're obviously don't have any time.
but this, that's one to us.
Yeah.
So they put their return address on there but didn't sign.
It's just puzzling.
We gotta talk so that everybody can hear.
It's just puzzling because they have their full return address on here and yet no signature.
Right, right.
That's the willing to make that coverage.
Yeah.
Don't understand. It just doesn't add up.
So, and the only one that I have a pause about is this one that was an accessible vote center that didn't sign, which really should have been the responsibility of the person in the accessible vote center. I understand that that's something missed, but if that's what you're saying, that was part of.
There were voters that did not want to sign, even at the accessible vote centers.
Okay, all right.
They were
Well, then
vocal about that.
Okay. All right, even though they were told they needed to, or-
Yes.
all right.
The worker at the Dropbox, usually that was what the worker did at the Dropbox. They were instructed, I worked in the LUSAC for 3 hours, and every single voter that came up to drop something into the Dropbox, they were asked, did you sign the outside of the envelope?
Okay, all right. Well, this one, as I'm saying, looks like it's,
Right.
yeah, a little different, but I understand. Okay, so,
I have a question.
yes?
I don't know how this is going to happen, but I think it needs to make, I don't know how this is going to happen, but it needs to be made clear to people that this is no different than signing a voter register. In fact, it's the equivalent of signing a voter register when you sign that envelope, as far as I can see. That way we know that it's them and they signed it. It's no different than when you're voting in person and standing in line for however long, you can step up and sign the voter register. Everyone can see that, and the public can see it if they want. What's the real difference? I don't understand.
Through the chair, we got thousands of phone calls. In fact, we got over 1,000 calls in one day, and that was probably a frequent call that we got. I'm not sure that I'd say it was the most frequent call, but people were very concerned about privacy for a variety of reasons. One, they were concerned that it would be in the mail system and could subject them to identity theft. But people were also concerned that it would, their name would be connected to their ballot, which is one of the concerns that Nina heard from the accessible vote centers. So I think it is a concern. We did try to talk to voters about it on the phone. I think our call center did a great job of educating people. Again, they had thousands of calls over the time period. I think that the outreach and education team also did a great job explaining the signature. We explained it in all of our materials that there were 3 steps that you needed to do. And I think some of them were probably legitimate misses, and I think some of them may have been people who chose not to sign. And I think it's probably a combination.
And Barbara, I would agree with you as well. I know the League of Women Voters went out and did about 47 presentations. I think it was 47. And the ones that I was at or gave presentations to, those were the questions. You know, I said there's always you don't have to put your signature on and put it in the mail. You put your signature on, you have the accessible vote center, you have the drop-off boxes, so there were options. Those were questions that came up. The assigning your name to the ballot came up, and I explained that process. So I do think, like Barbara was saying, that Carolyn, our outreach and education coordinator, did a really good job. And those were questions that came up. And I look at this as that it's going to happen. I mean, it is the voters. The voter has to take some responsibility in making sure that their vote is counted. Okay.
Madam Chair, this one was in this group. We can create a separate group if you like. On this one, the guardian signed the outside of this ballot for the voter. We sent the cure letter that said the voter needs to sign, and the guardian again signed. A guardian is not allowed to sign the voter declaration. The guardian could have signed, and then the voter still needed to make the X if the voter wasn't able to sign, and the guardian could have witnessed it. And we gave another opportunity for that to happen, and it didn't. So either this is voter failed to sign, or you can have us create another category, but a guardian cannot sign for a voter. Okay, so that was our Z category with 16. Our next Z category is the signatures didn't match on the ballot return envelope. So, and there are 100 in this category. Our workers really did an absolutely awesome job reviewing voter signatures. We had some training from the state of Washington. The Washington State Trooper came up. Their mission is to do voter education training. They do that for the state of Washington, and they did it for us as well. I thought it was really hard. I was really pleased when we ended up going through the signatures that it was much easier because our voters signed their official signature. I think we checked after about the first week of signature verification. Nina had done 52 letters, and we had 10,000 envelopes, and that was like a 99.99% acceptance rate. So it was really high. I haven't checked it more recently, but with only 100 that were rejecting for no signature match, it's still going to be pretty high acceptance rate. Nina and her team have sent letters to all of these voters, opportunity to cure letters, and they also called or emailed all of them if they gave us that contact information.
And at this point, I'd like to say, and when we do have the Canvas meeting, I was going to talk about this, but I'll mention it now because it's more of our work session. But, you know, we've been here multiple times to watch the process, observe the process, which I was going to start with at our meeting. And we've also sat at the signature verification table over there and watched them come through and looked at some that were rejected and why they were rejected. So I think we have a good understanding of that process, so that knowing that it was done based on like the training that you had and stuff, and giving every opportunity to the voter. So I think that by looking at these, we can realize that there are some that did not match at all, if you remember when we were sitting there looking. And considering the voter had the chance to send a signature back. And I think the other important thing to point out is I know that since I was on the RFP committee as well, that there is a way where you can do signature verification based on a percentage, you know, by the system itself. And the Muni decided not to do that and to go visual. So I think that's very important.
It doesn't sound like it. I guess they just
Signature did not
they just didn't match what was there.
Signature did not match. They were sent a letter
Yeah,
and did not respond.
Huh.
It will be interesting to see if anyone shows up at the canvas with their signature, or saying that they're there. I think this top one is very interesting. Do you want to know what they put for their signature? I don't think so.
Okay. I guess that answers my previous question. Huh?
Yes, it does. And it was dropped off. It was not mailed.
Oh my goodness. Okay. They want to be sure you got it.
And Nina, this one that has a note on it that says PFD.
So we also, through the state, tried to capture signatures that through the PFD. Some we did get back. That one we did get a signature back, but it's still not a match.
And I don't know whether this is appropriate or not, but I'm going to say this, and if I shouldn't, and I won't say it later, probably won't, but my daughter did receive a cure letter and for her signature and sent it back. So I like to say the system works. It's interesting to see how many people actually put a email and phone number on here. Because I'm looking through them, because I'm not seeing too many, but I'm seeing a couple.
Some do, yeah.
I'm just curious as to how many people called in to see if their ballot was returned, their ballot was received. I mean, are we talking a lot, a few?
I'm not sure what the call center received. We received maybe a dozen,
Okay.
but they primarily went to the call center. The call center didn't have access. to the database that showed if their ballot was received.
Barbara was just asking, I mean, do we have, do you have any idea, I know numbers might be hard, a percentage of how many people actually call the call center to see if their envelope is received?
Did you know, we started to check that, but actually that was not the highest percentage of calls that we got.
All right.
We actually stacked up based on Washington State, and I actually thought that that was going to be the highest number of calls. Wasn't even close to the highest number of calls. We did get calls. We got calls today, but it just wasn't as many as we expected. I think we probably got the most calls for I didn't get a ballot. And I am not surprised about that, given that we had 20,000 ballots that were returned to us as undeliverable. We had, do you know how many people voted at the accessible vote center? Yeah, I don't. I can get that number for you. But on election day, when I went to the LUSAC, there was a line the entire 3 hours that I was there.
I did hear that when we were here on election
Yeah,
day.
there were 65 people when I counted once. I'm sure that there were more than 100, and it did vary. And it's my understanding that most of those people were undeliverable in the database and didn't get their ballot. So I think that was probably the most common call. When I checked on about, it was pretty early in the election, we had mailed over 900 replacement ballots. So, and what we did, so a replacement ballot would come to me at my address. So if I live at 2100 Main Street and I get a replacement, it just comes, that's an automatic replacement. We didn't have any, you're entitled to that ballot at your address. But if I said, I want a ballot, I don't live there anymore, and I wanted it at 100, Center Street, then I had to fill out an absentee application. So that gave us some indicia that you were who you said you were, you signed your name, you had to provide an identifier. And I believe we had about another 600 of those. So it was a lot, So I think those were probably as many calls as what's the status of my ballot.
I know it was the news channels that I watch. I go back and forth between several. They definitely have a phone number on them to call and seek your ballot. And that's what made me think more calls.
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah.
Okay, so those were the no signature match. The next category is no reference signature. So, so I am really, really proud to report that we only have one in this category. And I think this is really important because in November, we sent out signature verification letters at 57,000 people who we did not have reference signatures for. And to end up with only one,
That's astonishing.
I'm really proud of that. And all that credit goes to Nina and her team and the collaboration with the state of Alaska. The state of Alaska looked at PFD. That's the note that you saw. Joyce was PFD. They also went to the state of Alaska. They looked on DMV. You saw on the ones where the voters canceled their registration. We went to all kinds of sources to find these reference signatures.
And I think we as a commission too were over there where Nina was working on, the 8.5 by 11 sheets, if you remember, where she had the information from either the PFD or the DMV for matching signatures.
Nina, can you explain this voter and a little bit more about this voter and the lack of a reference signature?
We are not able to get a signature for him, and we will not be able to, because he registered through the PFD, and he used an electronic signature, so there is no signature for him, and so the PFD has no signature, and the state of Alaska doesn't have a signature for him in the database. So
So is it still the letter at all?
Oh, yeah,
he's part of the
Cure letters.
yeah, he got it.
So even if he didn't reply to the true letter, then he can come and still vote a question ballot. And actually, even without a reference signature. He would have to go to an in-person signature.
As long as he provided ID.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Okay.
That way you can get a signature.
Yeah. Well, maybe not.
Okay. Now we're getting into the tough ones, even if you didn't think these were already tough. Okay. We're going to number 3, ballot voted by someone other than the voter.
What?
So in this category, you can look at these individually. The first one, so what happened is sometimes it appears that people received a ballot for someone other than them at the address that they lived at. They didn't get one for them, so they voted the other person's ballot. You know, this person made it clear she wasn't trying to pretend to be him. She crossed his name out, she put her name here. Interestingly, she did receive her ballot and she did vote her ballot. So this one shouldn't count. This one was very much the same. She received another person's ballot. She voted it, then she voted her ballot, and she was just returning this one because this person didn't vote it. This one appears to be a father and a son, and we have that it appears that the father voted both ballots, and so we want to reject, we're recommending you reject the son's ballot. On this one,
And we know that because of the signature?
correct. The signature was it was a match on the father's ballot. It was not a match on the son's ballot. This one is somewhat similar. We received a call from a father who wanted to cancel his daughter's ballot. We told him he couldn't do that. We needed his daughter's permission to cancel her ballot. So you can see we contacted the daughter on the back. The daughter never got back to us though, but the father said he voted his daughter's ballot. She is in the lower 48 undergoing medical treatment. So those are some difficult decisions for you to make, but we leave that to you to make those decisions.
What was that one?
Wasn't that one of those
One
ones
is
with
louder.
canceling? Pardon?
Louder.
Louder. Wasn't that name,
It's Yang.
wasn't that name one of those ones
Be
who
careful about saying the voter's
Yeah, we're not
name,
going to say
please.
voters' names.
I think that was one of the voters who requested that their registration
it
be
wasn't.
canceled? No?
No.
Okay. It looks familiar.
So this was the one where it was the daughter. And she was out of state, Barbara said, on medical and never got back.
Right, you can read the email that we sent to the daughter.
something we'll have to discuss at the end. And this was the one where the father voted the son's ballot, and we have signature. It looks like we have the son's signature too?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. And this is his, and this is the... Okay, all right. Oops. And this was the one that she received and voted her ballot. She also received this ballot envelope for someone else and voted, and she signed it and then received her own. So that's pretty obvious that taking care of that one. And this one, this is the one where she changed the name on here and, okay, and then received her own ballot. All right.
Similar to this, we received a challenge and an inquiry, and the commission handles voter challenges. And the challenge was that someone was concerned that someone was voting for someone else. And so I'm providing this information to you. I've checked the database twice. We haven't received a vote for this voter. We haven't received any votes for anyone at the voter's address. There are 3 people at the voter's address, and none of them have voted. And so if they had, it would have been a challenge. We would have brought it to you to make a decision, but I'm just letting you know that I will check it again before the public session of Canvas.
Okay.
But our records don't show that the voter or anyone at that address voted.
Okay. So it's just a post.
Right. Okay. The last category is category number 5. It's on the bottom of page 3 and at the top of page 4. This is a new code that we've used. When a voter votes at an accessible vote center, and we've talked about this, but refused to have any identifying information on the outside of the envelope, and now we are unable to identify the voter. And so we have 4 of those. And there were more, and we matched it up to the ballot log, the ballot register log. We matched it up to the names. We met with the ABC teams to see if they could tell who the voters were or remember. And I believe there were 11 or maybe 15 or so. And of those, we identified 11, but we couldn't identify these.
So how do we know that they received the right ballot?
Well, we do believe that they probably received. So what happened when you come into the accessible vote center? You know, you have to give ID. We find you in the database. We write on the envelope the ballot style number. That's the 4-digit number. And then they're supposed to put a label on it. And the label has your name, address, and ballot package ID. And these voters apparently refused to have the ballot package ID, so they printed a label, but the label, it doesn't have any identifying information about the voter. It may just have the ballot style number in it. And you can see the ballot style number on those. So the ballot style is fine. We needed the ballot package ID. And then they went and got the ballot style. They got the correct ballot style, and then they voted, but we just don't know who the voter is.
This top one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's not really a ballot style.
No, that's not. The ballot style is the 1063.
I know the others have 4 numbers on it.
So they have the right ballot style.
Okay.
We just don't know who the voter is to credit them in the database.
Okay.
And these three didn't even, oh, they had witnesses, but they didn't actually sign. Okay.
We recognize that that is an error in our training at the accessible vote centers. We need to let the accessible vote center workers know you have to have a ballot package ID so that we can check the voter off in the voter registration database.
So if they're at an accessible vote center, they don't really need a witness.
Well, those voters had a witness, and you can see that it's stamped approved because the voters didn't want to sign the envelope, which is fine. They don't have to sign. They can make an X. Our worker signed it as the witness. We know that was a valid voter.
Okay, so it was one of the workers, okay. I'm just trying to
That
figure
is
out.
correct.
Okay,
Those are our workers.
that answers my question.
They're valid.
I just wasn't
voters.
sure why that was on there.
Yep.
So, okay.
Our workers did everything to accommodate them. We just missed giving them the instruction that we needed that ballot package ID.
And even with this voter's name on here, or signature, I mean?
On some of the others, we could match the signature up with someone in the ballot log. On those, we couldn't.
Okay. All right. You're good with what I'm showing you? Okay.
That is everything. Pretty good timing.
Yes. Okay, so there's a couple we're gonna check on. Or are they?
Did you know, just this one, we're going to
Okay.
count. We're going to see if they can count.
Okay.
I'm going to double check this to make sure this person hasn't voted.
Okay.
And the post office one that we had was correct. It was, Nina found the post, the zip code, and it was received in Anchorage on April 11th.
Okay.
So for those ones, I would recommend that you develop some criteria, and I'm sure that's exactly what Dean is going to tell you when he gets here. You have to develop objective criteria that says, if it was received in Anchorage on this date, then it must have been postmarked on or before Election Day. So you need to come up with some objective criteria like that. You probably do need to do it on the record, so think about it individually.
Right,
but
right,
your-
I realize that.
Right. Your deliberation probably needs to be on the record.
I wonder if there's any way that we could say the Anchorage post manager at the main post office, some idea of average transit times from different locations? No, probably not.
We could certainly ask.
Try.
And
Common sense would probably work just as well as anything else.
what locations are you looking for?
Well, we had something from Washington D.C. We had something from, well, East Coast locations. So
Okay.
that's the whole continent. So yeah.
And a lot of this also was a lot of bad weather with
Yes.
when aircraft couldn't take off and things like that, which could have played into it.
There was one period during the election when the airports were shut down for like 3 days. I remember the exact date. So
During the
know it
election,
was
I
in
don't
there.
remember that. All right,
I think
maybe you could check with them and see if there are any extenuating factors.
Okay. I will.
Okay. Are we done? Okay, I say we adjourn, and it is 4:47.